The English exam is getting very, very close, and so I've made this video to help you prepare best for the exam. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Darren, a first year medical student studying at Monash University here in Melbourne, Australia. For those of you who are new to the channel at this late point in the year, I graduated last year with an ATAR of 99.95 and a 50 in English. This video will be me sharing how I prepared for the English exam to you guys, and I think it's a very good way as well, so please consider doing these things if you haven't already. So the video will be split into 3 parts. In the first part, I'll be talking about timed essays, and in the second part, I'll be talking about planning. These are the 2 biggest ways which I prepared for the exam, and the last part will be a sort of just little bonus tip, so stay tuned for that as well. Enjoy the video. Firstly, timed essays. Now this idea about timed essays, I will split again into 2 parts. The first part will be really going into depth about my timing, so what my time checkpoints were for the essays, for the paragraphs, and why. And the second part of this first section will just be me talking about how I conducted my timed essays. With my timing, I encourage all of you to have extremely rigorous time checkpoints for each of your sections. So in order of my sections and in order of time, I would spend 50 minutes on the argument analysis section, I would spend an hour on text response, and an hour 10 on the comparative. I've been trying to impart this to all my students to implement, and you guys should as well, because what makes the exam so hard is that it's 3 essays in 3 hours, and once you fall behind, firstly you're emotionally unstable, and secondly it will have a big domino effect on the rest of your essays. Now, I was even more obsessive with my timing and broke down my paragraphs as well. So we'll begin with text response. With text response, I spent 10 minutes on intro plus planning, 15 minutes on each of the body paragraphs, and 5 minutes on the conclusion. Now the main justification here is that I spent 10 minutes on my intro plus planning because there was usually more time than I needed, so it's always good to start off on the right foot rather than start off behind. With comparative, I spent 10 minutes on the intro, 5 minutes on the conclusion. That left 55 minutes, and so that's roughly 18 minutes per body paragraph. And I needed a little bit more time for comparative because unless the topic's exactly what you've written before, I found that I needed a bit of time to think about my analysis and what similarities and differences I'll draw with my moments. Finally, with argument analysis, once again, 10 minutes for the intro. I could even get away with 5 minutes with the intro, and I'll explain why. 5 minutes with the conclusion, and that left around 40 minutes for the body paragraphs. Sometimes I would do 5 body paragraphs, sometimes 6, sometimes 4, and so that remaining 35 to 40 minutes I would divide by however many body paragraphs I had decided to do, and then I would do that. Now, the reason why my intro for argument analysis could be a little shorter is because of the way I split my time during reading time. Reading time is 15 minutes. Once again, I recommend you really have a structure and a reason for spending it how you want to spend it, because it's so crucial. For me, I would spend 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes, looking at my text response and comparative topics, because everyone's curious, you want to know what the topics are, and so I'll look at them, sort of have a feeling about what I would write, maybe plan them, but remember, stick it to 5 minutes. And the next 10 minutes I would spend entirely on argument analysis. The reason for this is that for me, I found argument analysis reading time the most important because I could chunk it, so break down what paragraphs I would allocate to one written paragraph, and also think about my intro and essentially write my intro in my head. And that's why also I saved a bit of time when I got to my intro. So those are all my timings for all 3 sections. What I encourage you guys to do is to either follow my timings if you think they're well justified, or just come up with your own timings, but really have reasons for why you spend longer on certain things. That way you will really have a strategy and a plan for the actual exam. Now the second part of timed essays is actually writing the essays themselves. Now, I only sat 2 full 3-hour exams before the actual exam, but every single essay I did, so maybe a section by itself, I didn't really do 2 sections together, but you can, but all the sections by themselves, I would very rigorously focus on my timings and practice those timings that I spoke to you about. So I would actually spend 2 minutes reading time for text response and then an hour on the actual piece, and follow the paragraph timings as well. Another thing that's important to note is that you're not allowed like a phone or a timer in the actual exam, so don't use one when you practice. Use your watch and look at your watch. So I kind of knew, like, 3 of those gaps is 15 minutes, and you practice it and you work it out so it becomes second nature to you. And secondly, I do recommend printing out the paper for the VCAR paper. They have like pretty big margins on the side, and also you kind of get a gauge of how much you write each time, and it's really good to get familiar with that. And so when you get into the exam, the timings are everything you've practiced. The paper is exactly what you've written on, and there's nothing that will really surprise you. You've experienced every kind of timing. You would have been behind in practice, ahead of time in practice, and so you know how to adapt to each situation and excel in the exam. Section 2, planning. What planning does that timed essays don't is allow you to prepare for a breadth of topics. So the problem with timed essays is you do one, you answer one topic. It may have been something prepared, may have been something you haven't prepared for, but regardless, you've only done one topic and it's taken an hour. What I was really worried about leading up to the exam was having a topic that I couldn't write on, that I couldn't construct good ideas for, and that pushed me to plan a lot. So I do recommend planning with friends, and I did that as well. So shout out to my friends who I plan with, because they can really come up with some good ideas as well. And it's a very collaborative effort. So essentially, I'll show you guys like exactly what I did now. Here is an example of the plans that I made in preparation for the final year exam. I had a whole document of these, many themes, and so I did brainstorm my ideas under themes. So here we have tradition and we have public versus private self. What I would do is think about a possible structure for my essay. There could be multiple ideas for body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3, which is why you see that there are 4 or 5 dot points on the page here rather than just 3. Underneath each idea, each possible topic sentence, I would brainstorm some key quotes and some key moments. It's not really I go searching for them, usually because I know the text so well, they sort of come to mind and I just write them down just to solidify that understanding. You don't have to plan solely on the themes, you can do it for specific topics as well. I felt like I could adapt really well to different topics, so I didn't feel the need to do that. I could adapt my themes to the topics really well and really flexibly, but for most people, I do recommend planning specific topics as well, just to see whether you can adapt well. And the topic sentences then are particularly important because you have to have keywords from the topic in them. And I think planning is a really good way to check whether you've covered the text in its entirety, whether you've missed any themes, missed any key moments that you didn't analyze during your SACs. And also, it's just a really good supplement to timed essays because it helps you work on things that timed essays don't. Bonus tip time. So what do you think is something that timed essays and planning don't work on that I might be suggesting for you guys to do here? Now, the problem with timed essays is that if your essay writing quality isn't at a point that you're happy with, doing timed essays will improve in very limited amounts because you have to do things under time, you have to do things under pressure. It's more so a good practice of all those timings and sticking to time rather than improving the quality of your writing. So what I advise you guys to do, and I've advised my students to do as well, is if there's a paragraph you're not happy with, one your teacher's given a lot of feedback for, just rewrite that paragraph. You don't need to rewrite the entire essay because I got really bored. I never did that because I found it very disheartening. But rewriting a body paragraph and very consciously thinking about what you're improving on and really seeing the difference, I think that will really help you bring your writing to a higher level, which you can then implement into your timed essays. I didn't do much of the rewriting body paragraph business later in the year because I was pretty happy with the quality of my work and I felt that timed essays were sufficient for me to improve. What I really did, however, was, especially when I was revising earlier texts that I may have forgotten, is to write down a key theme of those texts. So for example, Women of Troy, one big theme was the loss of autonomy. So I would write that sort of as my title and then see if I could write a body paragraph on that theme. Now that really makes sure you cover your text, and a lot of people ask me whether I memorized. I didn't memorize, but I made sure I covered all my bases. I had contentions about the key moments. And once you sort of repeat the key moments over and over again, it sort of just becomes ingrained in your mind and in your writing style. So I do recommend listing out key themes, seeing if you can write body paragraphs that prove popular points that you've proved in the past, or arguing certain things that you feel like might come up in the exam. And that's a good way of just checking whether you can write without your notes, without any quotes sheet or anything like that, similar to how you would do all your timed essays under exam conditions as well. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's video. I hope seeing how I prepared will help you guys better prepare for the English exam as well. I'm thinking of making this into a bit of a series where I talk about other subjects and how I prepared for those, but I'm not going to be able to cover every subject or cover every single piece of content I would like before the exams commence. So if you have any questions, preferably leave them in the comments so everyone can see, everyone can contribute, but I'm happy to answer questions over Instagram or through email as well. We're sort of in the final stretch until exams, so keep working hard, keep revising hard. Hopefully these videos can motivate you. If you're nervous, find out what you're nervous about, work at that. You don't want to go in there with a gaping hole that you've sort of just pushed away but were aware of this whole time. But if you're just nervous because of the whole concept of VCE and exams, then find ways to relax, talk to your friends, and watch these videos as well. Good luck with all that, and I look forward to seeing you all next time.